All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's press conference. We are here with head coach Troy Taylor. We will take questions using the raise hand function on Zoom. And we will start with the first question that comes in. Ben, you're up first.
Yeah, hey coach, just kind of talk about the kind of reflect on the win over Louisville, just kind of having watched the tape. What were the kind of key things you felt your team most did well during that game?
I'd say overall, just resiliency and making key plays down the stretch there was a number of them that were pivotal, and then the composure in key moments. So really proud. Wasn't perfect, but down the stretch, if you give yourself an opportunity, sometimes things work out.
Dylan?
Yeah, Coach. Ashton won quarterback of the week in the ACC. Kind of talk about his performance on Saturday and what made it such a special game.
Yeah, he was great in all phases. He had probably, he played probably as well as he's played since I've been here in terms of all facets of the game. He's a really tough guy. So he runs with great physicality and desire. He took hits in the pocket and was able to come back and still maintain its progression and his eyes downfield. And that's really difficult to do because he was under a lot of pressure throughout the game. But he, like I said, just was his mental toughness is what's been really impressive about him. And he made some, the fourth down throw was as good as throw as he's had. Just dropping it over in the back of the end zone. Great play by Emmett, but he did a couple of those, and he had some big runs as well.
John?
Coach, I know one of the things that you must be happiest about is the three last drives prior to the last 10 seconds. I mean, 8 for 80, 6 for 75, 9 for 76. Was it as simple as sort of Emmett presenting another threat there, or was it just Ashton making good decisions? What would you attribute the consistency of boom, 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 long drives and scores?
Yeah, well, he's specifically to Ashton. He's done it, like you said, John. It's on spurts, and he was just was able to do it for a longer duration. And so, protecting him sometimes has been difficult. And so he was under a lot of pressure in this game and took some shots. And I think what separates the best quarterbacks in the world is they're able to get back in the huddle and drop back and expect great protection and make throws. And I thought he did a really good job of that, where we had some guys that were open downfield and he was hit a couple of times early. And though, that's frustrating, just the tenacity of continuing to go back and believe that the next opportunity you're going to have. And then it started clicking on those last three drives where we were able to protect him. And then we had some guys make some really nice plays downfield, Emmett being the predominant one. So yeah, it's great having two really good threats with Alec and Emmett, and obviously Sam at tight end as well. So watching those guys come into their own is really fun.
Troy?
Yeah, Coach, big game week already. Seems like kind of snuck up on us here a little bit with how quickly the season went along. But, we know here all about in the Bay Area, all about big game, the history, the wacky moments, the wacky traditions, and all those sorts of things. But now we've got the ACC folks looking in on the big game. What do ACC people need to know about this rivalry?
Well, it's a historic rivalry, and it's been a closely played one. Typically the games are decided by a touchdown. So I think the teams typically rise to the occasion, regardless of the records or what's going on. And it's a rivalry that's taken very seriously in the Bay Area. People pay close attention to it, and it's two incredible universities with a lot of mutual respect and admiration that really want to be the leaders in what it means to be a student athlete, and then coming together and playing a great football game on a Saturday afternoon. So it's really what is great about college sports. And college sports obviously have changed a lot in the last 5 or so years. But I think this is one of the truly great things about college football is these rivalries that go back over 100 years, and people have memories of games. And hopefully it'll be another great one for Stanford folk on Saturday.
Steve?
Yeah, Troy, if I were going to tell you, I was talking about a Cal quarterback who got his first start in the middle of his freshman season against Oregon State, and he had a much what words I'm saying here. He was a much better runner maybe than people gave him credit for. Didn't have necessarily the biggest arm in the world, but was really accurate, really knew the system. Players rallied around him. Which quarterback would I be talking about?
I don't know. John Elway? No, I don't. I think you might.
I'm talking about. I said a Cal quarterback. I'm getting at that. I see some Troy Taylor in Fernando Mendoza. Is that a fair comparison?
He's a really good player. I've seen him play a lot. He's a tough kid. He's really good with his legs, and which you alluded to. He's made some really, when you see the games that they've had success, typically it's him making a run or a key play with his legs where he stays on his feet and delivers the ball. And so I got a lot of respect for him. Really good player. He loves football. You can tell he's really competitive. And so, we have a lot of respect for him over here. And I've seen him play a lot, and he's a really good one.
Do you see any of yourself in him?
I haven't really thought of it in that terms, to be honest with you. But yeah, I mean, it's a good compliment to me, I guess. He's really a really good player, and he's a multi-dimensional guy. You're right. He isn't one of those guys that you expect to run for a lot of yards, but he always surprises you by having great vision and taking good angles, and kind of he's willing to put himself at risk running the football. So I'll take it.
Fair enough. I think it's well deserved.
John?
Coach, you faced some good defensive coordinators in your time. What distinguishes Justin Wilcox's defense?
Yeah, well, Justin and Peter Sermon are really incredible coaches. I've watched their system and studied it a lot. Two great guys. First of all, I've known Justin for a really long time. He's one of the absolute best people that you're gonna know. And he's an extraordinary football coach. So they're going to be really sound. They're really good at stopping the run. It's always been something he's done well. They're able to get in and out of different things. They'll show you a lot of different coverages, or 3 primary coverages, and they'll do them all 3 well. And they're usually a really good tackling team. So those are the things. They're not going to have busts, and they're going to play really hard. So just what you would expect from a really well-coached team. Got a lot of respect for Justin, and this is another really good defense. There's not many teams that have scored points on them, or many points on them. If you look at the scores, Syracuse had a pretty good day on Saturday, but other than that, there hasn't been a lot of points scored on them. People have trouble running the football. They're very physical, and they lead the country in turnovers. Williams leads the country in interceptions. So they create turnovers like, what you want out of a great defense, creating turnovers and giving your offense an opportunity on some short fields. So they're really good.
Ben?
Cal's got a pretty sound run game. Just talk about that and what's going to keep your defense to continue to be successful against them.
Yeah, they're I would say in the games that they've struggled to run the ball, they found a way to move it through the air. So I think they're a pretty balanced team, but they're very good with the run pass options, which is a big part of what they do. And it really goes through the quarterbacks. They have good backs and good skill guys. But really for them, it's the RPO game and protecting the quarterback and being able to maintain some balance. And they've been able to do that.
Harold?
Hi, Coach. Emmett obviously had a breakout game on Saturday. Alec had a breakout game last year against Colorado and then wasn't quite able to replicate that the rest of the season. What do you need to see out of Emmett to kind of keep the momentum going?
Yeah, well, I think with Emmett, sometimes the way the flow of the game happens and the ball kind of finds its way towards you, and part of that is I think Alec does garner a lot of attention, so it gives him some opportunity. But we've known that Emmett is going to be an outstanding player. So I would say making sure we're putting him in positions so he'll have some opportunities. They'll definitely be, they watch a lot of film. They're really good coaches. They'll be aware of where he's at and how to defend him, and probably especially after this past game. So just having a really good plan, that we're able to get the ball to our playmakers and give them an opportunity.
Ben Ross.
Hey, Coach. Obviously, you've been on both sides of this rivalry now. I'm just curious, what do you expect your emotions to be like going back into Memorial Stadium on Saturday?
Yeah, gosh, been there a lot since I played, and both as a as a coach, obviously, when I was at Sacramento State, and seen a lot of games there, and when I did radio, and just taking my family there. So, I think, honestly, I'm pretty good at just kind of focusing on the task at hand. So, honestly, it won't. It will be for me, the opponent's just kind of a faceless opponent. We're just trying to strategically attack and find a way to be successful. So that won't play a part for me.
Troy.
Yeah, Coach, what are some things you need to see from the run game this time around against Cal that maybe you didn't necessarily see against Louisville last week?
Well, I mean, they're both really stout defensive teams. So Cal has always been extraordinary versus, I think they're top 15 defense, but they're extraordinary against the run. They always have been. They're built that way. It's important to them to stop the run. And so it's going to be tough treading for sure. You got to find a way to run the ball, and it's going to be a tough task. I think at Louisville we hung with it, luckily, and the game was close enough where we continued to run it a little bit, and we ended up hitting some runs that I thought were pretty key in the fourth quarter. But they're athletic, they're fast, they have great leverage points, and they're really good tacklers. So they're not going to give you anything, and they don't run themselves out of a lot of things. So you'll see teams that will blitz and game and kind of get themselves in trouble. They usually don't put themselves in that kind of position. So you gotta kind of earn it. I know they gave up a run against Syracuse, but really for the most part, that doesn't happen against their defense. They make you earn it. So it's going to be a big challenge. At the end of the day, you got to find a way to score points, whether it's run or pass, and hopefully we'll be able to do a little bit of both.
Diego.
Yeah, Coach. Anthony Franklin was disqualified on a targeting call in the second half. Was there any appeal of that call, and what's his availability for
We
the
did
game?
feel it. It was denied, so he'll be active in the second half. He'll be able to play versus Cal.
And how do you think how does that affect your defense?
Well, yeah, I mean, he's an important part anytime you affect the depth of your front guys, which is always imperative, especially on the defensive line, because as defensive players, you play so hard chasing the ball. It's just kind of wired into you that you need to have a number of substitutes that play throughout the game, especially on the defensive line. So that'll certainly have an effect. Guys will just have to step up, and he'll be ready to roll though in the second half.
John.
Coach, the word bomb cyclone is sort of getting in our lexicon this week, and raises a specter of rain. I remember games at Memorial Stadium where there was that crown, and you could see the wet between the hashes, and it'd be wet below the hashes, but dry between the hashes. I think that thing has been remedied. But in preparing for a game where there might be rain, well, first of all, you can comment on the crown and throwing to receivers that on the low part of the crown at Memorial Stadium, but rain preparation for a game when there might be rain. Do you have a game plan 1A and 1B, or is there can you kind of seamlessly adjust?
Yeah, you definitely have a plan, and it involves a lot of towels and rotating balls, and having your team have the right gloves and wearing the right clothing. So for sure, the crown was, I mean, you could see it from one sideline to the other. You could see it was they obviously don't have that same crown. It's a little bit more flat. I don't recall with a lot of rain on the new surface and how it handles it, but I'm sure it drains well, and we both got to play on it. So how we adjust and prepare for that obviously will be a factor.
Harold.
Kind of a unique circumstance at the end of the season, playing 3 games in kind of the 3 Bay Area football stadiums at Stanford, then Cal, and San Jose State. I was just wondering, how did the San Jose State game get on the schedule for this year? What was kind of the process or the thought process behind that?
Yeah, I couldn't tell you. The scheduling's usually done quite a bit in advance, and I'm sure we could find that out for you, but I don't have any knowledge on that.
Thank you. Steve?
Troy, Tristan is supposed to follow you in a few minutes. One, the fact that he's at the podium, does that mean he's likely to play Saturday, or is it still undetermined?
Yeah, I think it's undetermined. We have a lot of guys that are kind of day to day, and today's our first practice day. So we'll see. We probably won't know that till later in the week. I know he's going to do everything in his power to get healthy, but just got to make sure that he is in a position to, protect himself and play to his full ability. So probably won't know really till game day with him and a number of our guys. But I know they'll do everything in their power to get ready.
And following up on Tristan, I'm sure you know his family, that his dad played at Stanford, his mom went to Cal. The family divided. You're not a family divided, but I'm sure you have friends divided. Have you guys talked about that? You probably can relate to each other maybe better than most people on your team, correct?
Yeah, I think you can be safe to say everybody in Tristan's household will be rooting for him in Stanford.
Yep.
And I love Cal too, but I'm not going to be rooting for him on Saturday, So Tristan's an unbelievable kid, an unbelievable leader. And, there's nothing more important to him than representing his family and his school. So I know if he has an opportunity, he'll play, but like I said, we'll see. But his family's going to be rooting for the Card on Saturday.
Blood is thicker than alma mater.
That's right.
John?
Coach, what are your remembrances of the game last year against Cal? I mean, I know players are different or whatnot, but any takeaways from the game last year that?
You do. You watch it. I mean, I watched it. I've already watched it. Yeah, I think you can see what their plan was. I know their defense pretty well, just what their schematics are and all that. So it's good to go back and watch it and see kind of how they prepared defensively to play against you. That's a factor. Now we're a different team, and so are they. So you can't take all the credence just into that game. Really, you look at their whole season this year and what they're doing, and there's they've been good at playing defense for a long time. So nothing's going to change drastically, but it's definitely worth watching. Past games that you've won against each other.
Diego?
Coach, can you speak to how important the win last week was for morale going into this week, and how that affects the locker room, how that affects the mood in the locker room going into this week?
I think, it's really an extraordinary thing. You work so hard throughout the week, and then, you play the game, and if you don't win, you've put the same amount of effort in, and unfortunately, it's really a zero-sum game. So you go away, one team goes away feeling very dejected, and the other team feels a lot of elation. And that's just the nature of what we do. And if you do it long enough, you figure out that you got to move on either way. So I think winning does give you a little bit more energy, a little bit more steam. But, our guys, I've never felt like they've ever let down after a loss. They're dejected for maybe 24 hours, but it's never dragged on at all. So I do think you get a little extra steam in your step after a win, but it still comes down to your process and preparing. It certainly gives you a little bit more confidence when you win. So all those things are good, but teams that are coming off losses are typically really hungry too. So there's also that side of it.
Ben?
Just kind of get your thought. I want to get your thoughts on Justin Lamson, just in terms of his ability to come in and make clutch plays for you guys. He doesn't get a lot of snaps, but he's, per pass, it's one of the highest, maybe the highest passing efficiency in the team. Just talk about what's been his key to kind of step in clutch moments on that 4th and 1 and make just kind of being kind of in a way like a really effective elite kind of relief kind of quarterback for you guys.
No, I think it's a very astute point. First of all, it's his preparation. So Justin always prepares every single practice and game week. like he's going to be the starter, and he's always done that since he's been here. So I think that makes you, ready for the opportunity. And then we have packages for him. Obviously we have a lot of faith in him. I mean, you don't put a quarterback in the most crucial play of the game, or one of them, if you don't believe in him. So we believe in him a lot. And he's a guy that the moment's never too big. And usually when he's in, it's a big play. It's a crucial, we're on the red zone, or there's a crucial third down or fourth down that we're counting on him to be able to execute. I mean, so a lot of trust goes into that. He's an extraordinary young man, and that was as good as throw as we've had all year. As fans and stuff, typically you watch the ball, that's the normal thing, and you don't see what happens to the quarterback after he throws it. He took a big hit, somebody in his face, and put it probably in the best place you could, and Emmett made a great catch. But I was really happy for Justin just to have that moment. He's been a big part of our team the last 2 years.
Any other questions for Coach Taylor?
All right. Thanks, guys. Go Card.
Thank you. We'll be right back with Tristan Sinclair. We are back with Tristan Sinclair. We will take questions the same way we did for Coach Taylor, using the raise hand function on Zoom. John, you're up first.
Tell us about, well, first of all, just kind of what it was like to not be in the game, but experience last Saturday. I mean, that was like a highlight for a lot of folks connected to Stanford. For you, it was unique in that you didn't have the helmet on, but you were part of it. Tell us what it felt like in the locker room afterward.
Yeah, it felt amazing. I mean, obviously that was such a huge win for us, something that we really needed just to get rolling. And I was excited to, I guess try to play a part in it, try to coach guys up, try to help guys out with water or whatever it was I was doing on the sideline. Um, but yeah, no, it felt so good, and I'm so glad that we pulled that one off.
Steve?
Yeah, Tristan, hope you can play Saturday. Is the fact that it's Cal, does that in any way change how hard you want to play? In other words, if it's anybody else and you're at the similar injury status, does the fact that it's the big game have any import one way or the other?
I mean, I think that big game is obviously, like, there's definitely a little extra motivation there. But I think I'm always just trying to, so like since NC State, I've been trying to get back as soon as possible. And it's just kind of a thing where it's day by day, and I'm kind of working through it. Obviously, like if I can play, I'm going to play. And that's kind of how I've always approached it, like put on a brace, tape it up, whatever it is. So I'm definitely pushing hard to get ready for it. And I mean, I think, being big game always adds a little bit of juice for sure.
And if I could take that a step further, I think John might know this better than I, but there was a quarterback at Stanford in the late 1990s and early 2000s named Randy Fasani. And I believe Randy Fasani's parents were both Cal grads, and they were huge Cal fans. But of course, when Randy was playing, they were rooting for Stanford. But I think I saw some line, their parents were saying, I can't wait till he gets out of Stanford so I can root for Cal again. Do you get any of that from your mom or your sister or your aunts or whatever?
I've gotten it probably most from my sister. My sister's more like, okay, she'll support me for now, and then once I'm out of here, she'll go back to Cal, which is totally fair, and I respect that. That's like her allegiance. My mom has like kind of joked about that in the past, but I think she's more neutral, and will always support, kind of both sides. And who knows, on game day, I guess first Cal Stanford big game, it's always a little bit of a toss up in the future, but she definitely support both programs from here on out.
Nice diplomatic answer.
Yep.
Troy?
Tristan, 1 year removed, how do you look back at last year's big game and your role in it?
Yeah. Sure. That game was like really fun to play in. Obviously, not fun to lose. Um, but yeah, I think that was probably like one of the better games I've ever played in my life, like through my entire football career. I was really just kind of on cloud nine, just out there playing, not thinking. And that's like an experience you can get sometimes during games, and it's just like the best feeling ever is when you really are just kind of balling out there without even thinking about what you're doing. And that's kind of like it's always fun to like reach that like pinnacle, that zone. So that was like obviously amazing to play through, and then it was definitely devastating to hear that I couldn't play anymore once I got ejected from the game. But I think at that point it was kind of just next man up, and I was going to do everything I could still on the sideline and try to call things out for guys or help guys on the sideline, make sure they were ready to go in once they were in. And it is what it is, and obviously it's like disappointing. But it's more so disappointing that we lost that game. So that's like the biggest thing.
Ben?
Just want to get your thoughts on the run game. You guys have run defense has been a real consistent strength of your team this year. Obviously, it was critical against Louisville. Just what do you think has kind of gone into that improvement over the course of the season?
Yeah, I think that obviously with the run game, it's just that's kind of like our job is we take a lot of pride in that as inside linebackers, and obviously the front seven, like that's our job is to stop the run. And I think everything starts with that. It's like if you can stop the run, then you can make a team one dimensional and then kind of bring some pressure and stuff like that. So I think everything starts with being like tough and physical and stopping that run. Obviously, we've been better at that. That's something that we've really improved. If you actually look at the trend in the history of kind of Stanford football, um, we were not very good in the run, like 2, 3 years ago. And that's like this staff came in, and one of the biggest things they do is like, all right, we're gonna come here and we're gonna stop the run. And that's kind of like, what Wisconsin did. Their defenses have been amazing in the past. And so we were lucky enough to get that staff to come in and install their defense. And that's what we've been trying to do is stop the run. Because once you stop the run, it just opens up a lot more possibilities for us on defense. Get them down to second and long and then third and long, and then we can heat them up.
John?
Tristan, you mentioned there's a little more juice in the big game, and yeah, I believe Coach Taylor when he says you guys approach it just like it's another game, and I see you guys shaking hands after games. I know you all know guys on the Cal team, existing relationships and all that. But can you speak to the juice thing? Is there more talk between players as the game goes on? Do you hear different things from the stands in a big game? I know you played Clemson had 70,000 whatever. I don't know. They say it's going to be a sellout on Saturday, but is it the ambience or the player talk? Is that any different than any other game, or is it more or less the same?
I would say there's definitely more on big game. I'm not like personally a big I don't really talk a lot. I don't really say anything out on the field. But during big game they'll definitely get something out of me. A little smack talk. And then obviously the fans are super rowdy and crazy. So there's definitely a lot more to it. There's just more weight to it all.
Troy?
Yeah, kind of along those lines. This year at Memorial Stadium, they've switched sidelines. So Cal's now on the shady side. The visitors are now on the sunny side, right in front of the student section. How could that potentially affect that part of the ambiance and that part of the game for you guys?
Yeah, I think it's always fun and exciting. Like I've never really been to like a loud crowd or a big crowd or crazy fans has never been intimidating or really changed like the way I've played. I actually feed off it. Like I love the juice. Like when it's loud and people are crazy, like and fans are yelling at you. It's just like more motivation. It's like more fun, just to be in that environment. So I actually love it. I'm excited for that.
John?
Tristan, what does your dad Andy say about the big game? I know I mean, I know there's been many big games for you, but does he have a general attitude? Does he have a story or two? He played against Coach Taylor.
hmm Yeah. Shoot, no particular stories off the top of my head. Obviously, he's talked about some of the games and some of the kind of like legendary dudes that he's played against. Like I think Hardy Nickerson was one of the guys that he played against, and he always like talks about that and obviously they had some battles because he was at inside linebacker and my dad was at center. But more so like kind of the guys he played against and some of the tight games that he played in. No specific stories off the top of my head, but obviously like he doesn't like them, and they probably didn't like him either back then. So it's kind of the same, and I feel the same way.
Ben?
Yeah, just kind of thoughts on Cal's offense from a linebacker perspective. What are your thoughts on their offense? The quarterback Fernando Mendoza, running back Jaden Ott. Just kind of thoughts on their offense and what are the challenges that they're going to pose for you guys on Saturday?
Yeah, sure. I would say obviously like their offense has great scheme. I think that they, have a lot of different run families, run variation. They run the counters, they run like QB draw, they run the Swackers Oro series. They run like a lot of different schemes. And I think that they have some talented players. I think number 25 is really good. He's really fast, got good top end speed, and he plays hard. Obviously, number 15, he can run the ball pretty well. And I think he's got a good arm, and their tight ends are they block. So we'll see how it is on game day. But I think that they're, obviously a solid overall team on offense, and it's going to be a good competition.
John?
Tristan, I want to go back to the targeting issue because it happened to you last year. It happened to Anthony Franklin, whose starting streak will be interrupted, although not by any sort of demotion. Can you tell us about, yeah, as a player, the targeting rule? And I mean, we watch it and everything happens so fast, and it just seems hard in some instances to avoid it. What are your thoughts about? I'm not asking you to comment on the rule, but as a player, knowing the rules out there, is there much you can do, or is this just football so reactive that you don't even think about it and just hope that you don't get flagged for a given play?
Yeah, I honestly think 90% of targetings um, are just like reactive and really couldn't be coached too much better or I don't know, be like fixed or solved. Obviously, like they're trying to make football safer, which I 100% agree with. Like I want football to be safe. And obviously, like some of those hits that happened back in the day, if you go watch football even from 10 years ago, are completely illegal now. Like blindside blocks and blindside hits over the middle. Obviously, like there's things that we can try to do to make the game safer. And I definitely agree with those. It's just tough to be a defensive player. I think that's also part of it too, is like it's an offensive game and um we don't really get the same protections that they give to an offense. Like if a running back lowers his head and takes us out, we get the targeting somehow. And so that's like frustrating, I would say, as a defensive player. It is what it is, and we just have to, kind of operate within the rules. Obviously, there are like instances where you have to be smart, like a quarterback who slides. I got a personal foul last year, and like they got me on that, and obviously I can be smarter there and kind of go in with your foot in your shoulder, and if he tries to run me over, that's kind of just part of the game, and I can club him up and take him down. But if he slides, you can't hit him. So you have to be smart for sure, and that's something that we definitely coach and talk about. So in that aspect, like there's ways we can be better. Obviously, like Frank's hit, he's just running out the stack, and the guy kind of pivots and turns, and it's head to head, and it's just kind of a bummer because obviously, like that's a hit where it's not intentional. He's not lowering his head out of his way to try to like smoke the guy. He's just running to the ball, and it's just kind of one of those plays where I wouldn't really agree with the rule, the enforcement of the rule.
Any other questions for Tristan? All right, we will be right back with Sam Roush.
Thank you, guys.
All right, we will finish off today with Kat and Sam Roush. We will take questions the same way we have for the entirety of this press conference. Ben, you're up first.
What's up, Sam? Just kind of want to get your thoughts on Cal's defense, kind of what you see from them schematically and what's going to be key to you guys being successful against the Golden Bears defense on Saturday.
Yep. Well, obviously they're really good at stopping the run. I think they've got the 15th ranked run defense. They try really hard to make that a big part of their identity, but that definitely leaves them open to getting beat in the pass game. I think their linebackers are really good. They've got some good defensive backs. I know one of their corners, I think number 7, is leading the NCAA in interceptions. So he's pretty strong as well. But for me personally, blocking those big long defensive ends, and then they've got some solid linebackers as well.
John?
Sam, if you would, can you describe that formation that we saw sort of as new last week? Troy and I were kind of geeking out on it. I'm not asking you to give away the super secrets, but for the average listener or the person who's going to go to the game on Saturday, what is that formation? What's your role in it? And what are the options that you can do out of it?
Yep. I don't want to give away too much about it. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting formation. We talked about it last Monday or Tuesday, and we were putting it in, and I was like, man, this is like, because we put it in, I was like, oh man, they're gonna like direct snap me the ball, like this is gonna be awesome, and like, not to say that we can't do that, but obviously on Saturday we didn't do that, and yeah, it was an interesting.
Is there a name for it, or would that give away too much?
The name is top secret, classified.
Troy?
Yeah, Sam. Obviously, Alec gets a lot of attention, but now maybe Emmett Mosley will start to get a bit more attention from opposing defenses, I should say. When you have potentially 2 downfield targets, consistent targets, how does that open it up for the rest of the passing attack? What could that potentially mean for you as well?
Yeah, well, if they're really focused on the guys outside, sometimes they gotta leave holes in the middle. If they don't feel comfortable going man against some of our outside receivers, and they got to run some zone, and that's good for me as well. Getting in the holes in the zone, it's great for the tight end.
Steve?
Sam, Troy Clardy asked Troy Taylor what the ACC fans should know about the big game rivalry, but this is the first big game with you guys in the ACC. But you kind of have a pretty good perspective, right? Because you were part of, or at least tangentially part of, the Duke Carolina rivalry, right?
Yes, that's
How
right.
similar or different do you think the Duke Carolina rivalry is with the Cal Stanford rivalry?
It's very similar. I mean, right down the road, a lot of history. I mean, this is the 127th game. Literally right down the road. I could get to Cal right now in under an hour. So that's very similar to the Tobacco Road rivalry. I think for basketball, I think Duke Carolina probably takes the cake. But for football, I think Cal Stanford's a bigger rivalry than Duke Carolina, in my opinion. But I'm a little bit biased.
Fair enough.
John?
Sam, in former days, when the Stanford rosters were more California, Arizona, Texas, didn't have a lot of guys that played in the rain. I'm sure growing up, Lipscomb Academy, whatnot, you had some weather games. We don't know if it's going to rain or not on Saturday. Might rain hard, might be off and on rain. How do you, as a player, deal with that, particularly your role as catching passes? Do you have I asked Coach Taylor, he said towels and whatnot. He sort of gave a generic answer. How do you sort of mindset going into the game and then dealing with it when you're in the game?
Yep. Well, I sweat a lot to begin with, so for me, it's like it's always raining. So I changed my gloves out. I changed my gloves out after warm up, and then after the first half, and then obviously for the second half, we got a fresh pair of gloves as well. So I'll do the same thing in the game. I'm sure they're gonna have fresh gloves on the sideline too. So if it's really raining and you got to change out after like a quarter, I'm not gonna be afraid to do that as well. But yeah, just keeping fresh equipment on, dry towels, gloves, and then the quarterbacks and the equipment guys will be working to keep the balls dry as well.
Ben?
You guys haven't won many games this year, last couple of years. But this season, you guys, two of the games you guys won in the ACC were both really close wins, both walk-offs with Kenny. So what is it about your team that you guys haven't been able to win close games? You've been in those situations this year to pull them out.
Yeah, well, we've got a lot of resilient guys. Never quit attitude. I know that's kind of cliche, but it's definitely real. And yeah, I don't know. I'm really proud of the guys we have in our locker room. And I feel confident that when we get into a dogfight, a close game, that those guys are gonna have my back and that they're not gonna be afraid and shrink from the opportunity.
John?
Sam, you guys got rewarded last week. It was a great comeback. Can you sort of take us through the last maybe minute of game action, and then maybe the 10 minutes thereafter where you kind of your emotions swing? It's like, well, maybe we'll get overtime, which direction? Then all of a sudden you see the penalties, and all of a sudden you see a kick might happen, and then it goes through, and then I assume you're like a shot out of a cannon onto the field like all your teammates were, and then the locker room, I'm sure, was boisterous. I mean, kind of take us through the emotions at the end of the game and then just after it.
Yep. Well, obviously we had that score with Justin Lamson. There's a great throw to Mose. That was pretty exciting. And at that point, I was kind of getting ready to go to overtime. I was like, all right, defense. There's only a minute left on the clock, or I think it might have been even less than a minute. They're gonna get a stop, right? The time's gonna run out. We're gonna go to overtime. But then somehow we got the ball back with like 10 seconds left, and I was like, okay, like we'll try for a Hail Mary. Like I hope we get it, but like I'm ready to go to overtime, like get this thing done. And then that was great. We got 20 yards of free penalties, which was pretty bonkers. So then at that point, I started doing the calculations. Like, all right, we're on the 40-yard line. You had 10 yards for the end zone. You had 7 yards because that's where the hold is going to be. It's like, all right, 57 yards. Like I trust Emmett to make that. Then we got another 5 yards. It's like, okay, now it's a 52-yarder. Like he's definitely going to make this. Like we're about to win the game. I think everybody kind of felt that. I was just trying my best not to jump off sides. I was on that side where the guy jumped off sides on the field goal. So I was like, I'm not moving. I don't care what happens. I'm not going to be the guy that makes a 57-yard field goal, a 62-yard field goal. But yeah, I think everybody was pretty ecstatic. We were expecting to have to go to overtime to win the game. We knew we were going to win the game, but uh, we were excited that we got the job done early.
Troy?
Yeah, big moments for both the quarterbacks last week against Louisville. Ashton with his best passing game probably of the season, and Justin with just that drop in the bucket to Mosley for the game time touchdown. What have each of those guys, Ashton and Justin, meant to the squad this year?
Yeah, well, two upperclassmen leaders. Justin's obviously I think he's a redshirt junior. He may actually have 2 more years of eligibility, but he's a fourth year. Ashton's a third year. So two upperclassmen leaders. They both do an incredible job preparing, showing up every day ready to work. I think that's something that me and the rest of the team really admires about all of them is they're locked in every day for practice. Even week 12 of the season when you're not super excited about being out at practice. The season's long, hasn't gone exactly the way that we wanted it to, but you still got to show up every day and work, and they're great examples of that.
Any other questions for Sam? John?
Sam, talk about just your tight end room, and I know Benji's getting some playing time, but just kind of what you see on film from the guys that are younger, and maybe how some of the upperclass guys are being real good support.
Yeah. Well, Benji and Aiden are doing a great job. We're a little bit shorthanded right now. We've got a couple guys banged up in the tight end room, but me and Benji and Aiden are all healthy. I don't know if you guys know this, but on that play where Justin Lansom threw the touchdown, that was Aiden Black's first offensive snap. So that's pretty cool to, he's 1 for 1. When he's in the game, we're throwing a touchdown. So
thanks. Yeah. Thanks for educating us.
Yeah. I thought that was pretty cool. But obviously he did a great job. He locked on his man and locked down in protection. So yeah, they're doing a great job developing and just getting where they need to be.
Thank you so much for attending today's press conference. We hope